you to allow us to have this opportunity. And also the committee that put this event together. We are very grateful to be able to celebrate Black History Month. So I want to start off with a quote I found by Maya Angelou. I used to say Maya Angelou until one day she said, it's Maya Angelou. And I actually got to see her when she spoke. And I'm going to read it exactly how she said it. She said, "We should all know that diversity is a rich tapestry. And we must understand that all the threads are of equal value." She said, no matter what the color of the thread. I just thought that was powerful. A tapestry. I don't like the way the word sounds, tapestry. So, as I prepared for this event, I was reading a letter from my grandmother. And I became really nostalgic about it because when I was a sophomore in college, my grandmother would write letters. And in the letters, so we didn't have Cash App. So things like that. In the letters, she would put $5 and she'd wrap it in a piece of paper and put it in a letter and put a little note with it. And she was so proud of me. So I did use, I want you to know I used waterproof mascara today. So it should not run. And as a first generation college student for my family, we want our families to do the best they can, and she tried to support me, even though she was on a fixed income. She would send money whenever she could. And so as I was reading the letter, I thought about the power of letters. So I went back and read Martin Luther King's letter when he was in Birmingham jail. And it was so powerful. And in that letter, he addressed the Black clergy in Birmingham and said, this is why we need the call to action. Powerful letter if you get to read it. Also, I look back at Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was in prison in South Africa. Amazing letters he wrote from a prison to his family. Powerful if you get to read them. So you say, what does letters have to do with what you're going to say? Well, I like letters. I don't have Facebook to share with you or Instagram or all those different iMessages and media ways that we communicate now, but I think there's a power in a letter and in the power of the pen. So I'm going to write you a virtual letter. It's my speech, I need to do it like that. So dearest ECU faculty, alumni, students, community members, friends, and family, thank you for the opportunity to share my truth. I pray that you are inspired to be better, do better at the conclusion of this letter. A defining moment in my life was in Mrs. O'Banion's 7th grade class in Benton, Louisiana. Mrs. O'Banion asked me to stand in front of the class. And I stood up there and she asked me to share my assignment with the class. And as I looked at the class, my peers, 7th graders, inattentive, I stood there, and even at that time in my life, I wondered, does what I have to say matter? This is why I wore mascara. So, as an introvert in a sea of extroverts, I stood there. Nobody really paid attention because we're the 7th graders, so everybody did what 7th graders do. But I stood there and I said, yeah, what you have to say matters. So, this is what I did. I said, friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears. I come not to bury Caesar, but to praise him. Half the class agreed with my mother when she told my sister she was a strange little girl. And my sister can attest to that. The other half, I had their attention. It was powerful. That has been my soul met passion. Because since that time, I have spoken in front of national, state, and local audiences. I've been able to share my truth. You see, when I got on the other side of that fear, I led my best life. I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I don't know if he's here today, and I said, well, why do you think Harriet Tubman chose to run in a time of oppression, when the cost for a runaway slave was death, and in some cases a fate worse than death? So he thought about it, and he said, well, Sharona, I think she had nothing to lose. Yeah, I have to respectfully disagree. I think she had everything to gain. I think she had to gain her life, her liberty, and also her humanity. You see, when Harriet Tubman thought about if she would run, and if I could be there and think about her words that I have read, one of her visions or dreams, she said, I see a line. She said, and across that line, there's a field of green. She said, there are lovely flowers, and there are beautiful white women with their arms outstretched to me. She said, but I can't get there. She said, no how. I can't get there. Was it her fear? I don't know. But let me tell you the good part about this. When Harriet crossed that line, she is quoted as saying, I crossed the line, and I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. Let me tell you what my thoughts about that are. Fear and oppression will make you not even recognize who you are. Powerful. So Mary Mahoney, oh, let me tell you, Harriet, nurses, was a nurse in the Union Army. Okay, that's one plug. But Mary Mahoney's parents, they moved from North Carolina. They were freed slaves. And they moved up north to give Mary a better life and to escape the discrimination that was coming up and surrounding the Civil War. So Mary said, or thought, I want to be a nurse. There weren't nurses in her family. Her parents were freed slaves. So she enrolled in a school. No, so she actually worked in a hospital. And then she decided, when the hospital decided to have a nursing program, to enroll. What made Mary think that she could possibly be a nurse? There was no legacy left for her. There had to be many fears. But when she got on the other side of that fear, I think we know the history. Mary Mahoney was the first African-American nurse to graduate from a formal nursing program. Many of you, including me, stand before you here today because of the legacy that Mary Mahoney left, that she left to us. So I've heard many times that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. You know, I always have something to say, right? It doesn't. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the thought that you can take that step. So I'm a true believer that your thoughts become your words, and your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits, and your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. We saw that with Harriet Tubman. We saw that with me in the 7th grade. We saw that with Mary Mahoney. So if it's really that simple, why aren't all of us thinking and living our destiny? Why hasn't it crystallized into our actions? So my husband sometimes would tell me, yeah, you know, there's like the real world and there's Sharona's world. So we're going to go to Sharona's world real quick. I believe that we don't live our destiny and live out our purpose or our calling because of external forces and external voices, the voices that we hear. The voices that numb or suffocate that internal voice inside of us that tell us, no, Mm-mm. You're really mediocre. Yeah, you can't do it. Don't put yourself out there. People are gonna judge you. Yeah. You have to fit in. How about conforming? It's easy, right? So let me tell you what it looks like for somebody dealing with the external forces and the external voices. We're gonna take a stroll through my life. You see, my mother was 16 years of age when she gave birth to me. In Benton, Louisiana, there was a time of, and during the time I was born, there was unrest. There was segregation, desegregation. There was stigmas. She was 16. She lived with her mom and dad on a farm, my grandparents. And she had 14 siblings. Many of them had children as well. I lived with my grandmother until I was about 5. But you know what the NIH said, the National Institute of Health? So it said children of teenage mothers are prone to have developmental delays. They are prone to repeat the cycle of teenage pregnancy. And they're probably going to repeat grades within school. I was a salutatorian of my school. That's a story in itself. I think I should have been valedictorian, but. So then my mom, when I was 5, married my biological father. And my dad, to this day, stayed with us, and I think he did the best he could with what he had. You see, Dad dropped out of school when he was 8th grade. He dropped out to support his mother, his brother, and his sister. His father abandoned him. 13 years of age. But my mom had me, so Dad said, let's get married, let's get a house, let's do what normal people are supposed to do. Yeah, but I don't think normal people's homes are riddled with domestic abuse or violence. Dad was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He had a substance abuse problem. He was in and out of jail, incarcerated. Let me show you how the paradigm is shaping up for my life. The CDC said children from homes of domestic violence and children from homes with parents who have mental illness and children from homes where the parent is in and out of jail, they're going to have cognitive delays probably. They're going to have antisocial behavior. They're prone to be addicted to some type of substance. And they probably will be a victim of violence themselves. That's the CDC. So now the NIH and the CDC are shaping what it should look like. So my grandmother who wrote me the letters was here today. This is where she would stand up and say, but God. And also, I have to say that even though I mentioned stats and research, I have to stand very strongly with Mark Twain when he said, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. So if we believe, so those are kind of how the external forces shaped it up. But what are the voices? In nursing school, my clinical year of nursing, I was a junior, and I was in the room in clinical with my patient. My nursing instructor called me out of the room. She said, I need to talk to you. I'm standing in the hallway, Northeast Louisiana University, Monroe, Louisiana. And you know, we had our little white uniform on with a little blue around it. Mind you, candy stripers, really. And so I came out and I said, yes, ma'am? And she said, you know, I really doubt if you're going to pass this clinical. She was very statuesque. She was looking down at me. That was my perception. not smart enough for the nurse. That was my clinical instructor. So I kept feeling this every time she would say something. So actually I did finish that semester, but I chose to leave that school. I chose to marry my best friend, and we moved to Rapid City, South Dakota. So, Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, he talked about his time in the concentration camps. But he said a lot in that book, so I'm just taking one part. But he said there are decent men and there are indecent men. So in Rapid City, South Dakota, I met a decent man. And I say man as a whole because she was really a woman. She was faculty at South Dakota State University. Her name was Sydney Iant. Sydney Iant said, the ironic thing was she was tall and stature next too. She said, you will finish school. She said, I'm gonna make sure of it. She said, you're gonna go back and you're gonna get your BS in. And she said, let me tell you something. And she said, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. I thought Sydney was profound. I didn't know she was going from Illinois as well. So, the other thing she said that resonated with me was that, Sharona, you do not have the right to deprive little girls who look like you of your legacy. She said, you don't have that right. So, the rest is history. I stand before you, even after finishing my PhD here at ECU College of Nursing. I don't know if Trisha Crane is in here, but she put in a lot of hours and sacrifice. In closing, I would like to leave you with what I consider one of the best poems I have ever read. Well, there's another one. I also like The Road Not Traveled. That's a good one too. Marianne Williamson wrote a book, Return to Love. And I'm in good company because Nelson Mandela also quoted part of this poem when he was president of South Africa. So in this poem, she talks about our greatest and our deepest fear. She said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. She said, our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We ask, she said, it is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. She said, we ask ourselves, who am I to be talented, brilliant, gorgeous, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. You playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightening about you shrinking so that other people around you don't feel insecure. We were meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is in each of us. Not just some of us, but everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That was Marianne Williamson with our deepest fear. So lastly, in conclusion, and almost of my letter, each of you are a miracle. Maybe you weren't told that, but I have proof. The chance of you being born was 1 in 400 trillion. You've already beat those odds. So you were meant to be here. something that might happen in the future. It's not even real. What would you do if you knew you could not fail? How would the world benefit differently because you decided who you're supposed to be? Imagine how the world would be a better place because fear did not just have you standing on the edge, afraid to leap. You see, what if I told you you could do it even though you're afraid? Once you allow your thoughts to crystallize into your action, fear begins to dissipate into nothingness. Because that's all it was anyway. So don't give others permission to write your life. The pen has always been in your hand. Use it to write a story worth reading. Use it to leave a legacy that cannot be erased. Sincerely, Dr. Sharona.